Nice.
Katie, how you doing?
Good, good. So, all right, so watching practice certainly seemed like it was very up-tempo. He tried to work some physicality in there at the end. How are you going to manage this with, time constraints as far as getting ready for the regular season, time constraints as far as time on the field, to make sure that these guys are getting the necessary hitting they're going to need to get without the benefit of the preseason games this year?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's the thing that we've been really trying to focus on, the details of how these practices are going to look. You saw today it's a 90-minute practice. So by the time you do your individual work, you do some routes on air, the defense is over there doing their drills, you do a little group install, and then before you know it, like you said, there's not a whole lot of reps for some of the team periods, whether it's team run, play action, whether it's 7-on-7. So you want to try to get as many plays as you can in those periods so that you can evaluate. That's number one, what probably you would lose the most from previous years. So the reps that we do get, per se, let's say it's a 20-minute period, we're going to try to at least get 30 plays in there. I thought our tempo in and out for the first time putting pads on was okay. It's going to only get better because all those Zoom meetings and meetings that we're having right now, now you're on the grass, and now there's a defense with moving parts and there's an offense with moving parts. So for the most part, we'll go back, we'll watch the tape and just try to keep getting better with that tempo.
Pat Finley.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Pat?
I'm good. Hey, can you walk us through kind of the amount of work that went in to just planning the first padded practice in the time of COVID here? And also, was there anything about it that surprised you or seemed odd?
No, Pat. For us, the scheduling probably on the front end of the phase 2 ramp up stuff for us was probably the most challenging, just because that was new. Today being the first day of pads, it was a pretty simple structure. It's one that we've done that I've always been a part of, going back to with the Philadelphia Eagles with Coach Reed and in Kansas City. So that part, I think, was the same for us here. The last 2 years, we've done it the same way. So it goes quick, and for us, it's just a matter of balancing, again, the reps that we get and just understanding that each day there's a little bit more added to the practice. And we're finally able to get some tape in camp here where we can really teach these guys, teach off of tape, and then hopefully see what the competitions look like.
JJ?
Hey, Matt. Speaking of teaching off tape, what are you hoping to get out of working Cordero Patterson and with the running backs and teach him off of that tape?
Well, it'll be good. I mean, he's obviously played some running back before. And so for him to be able to go back there and take some snaps, get used to it, it is different just because there's different techniques that he's going to learn. And I think that between Charles London and Dave Ragone and those other running backs in that room, it's been a good room for him so far. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to see what he can do there. And we want to be able to get the most out of him. He's a very talented guy, as you guys have seen in the past last year. And we just feel like there's, when you have weapons like that, you want to find ways to get him the ball.
Adam Hope.
Hey, man, obviously we can kind of keep track of who's completing what in the quarterback competition, but I also saw some drops out there. Maybe there's one pass that Mitch would have wanted back. So from your perspective, what did you think about the decision-making today between those two?
Yeah, Adam. We saw those two. And again, we try not to rush or get too crazy over any drop passes right now, whether it's on the offensive side or defensive side with a dropped interception. We really look right now for the decision-making. We're trying to test some things in regards to where those guys are at. And I thought the decisions were good. There were a couple drops out there, but this is the first time that these guys have had pads on since last year, whether it's you're a rookie in college or being from college, or whether it's you're an NFL player that hasn't put it on for months. So that's going to happen. Now, if you get an opportunity to get another throw and catch like that the next day, we want to see you take advantage of it. So I think right now, for us as coaches, digging into that tape and really critiquing what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong is going to be what's fun, and get away from those Zoom meetings.
Dan?
Matt, what have you seen out of Jimmy Graham to this point? And as you go into this next stretch of practices, what are you looking to see out of him to see that he's assimilating to the offense smoothly?
Yeah, Dan, you know what? Number one, I'll tell you this. He has a lot of experience, a lot of confidence, and he's a leader. He's a vocal leader. And I think that that's pretty good for this offensive unit right now for where we're at. We do have leaders on this team, but to have a guy that has played in this league for a long time and has had a lot of success, he's extremely motivated. He's extremely motivated to not only do well for himself, but to be able to help the rest of the players on this team. And so you take a guy like Cole Kmet as a young rookie coming in here, for Jimmy to be able to be a mentor and a leader in that room along with Demetrius Harris. You're feeling it in meetings, and now today you can feel it in the huddle when things maybe don't go as well as expected to play before. He has that next play mentality that just permeates through the offense, and I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to feel energy from him. He's a fiery guy with a lot of passion. I absolutely love that. Not to mention he's 6'7" and has unbelievable ball skills.
Jason?
Hey, Matt, 2 questions for you. What would be ideal as far as a timeline to shift one of the quarterbacks getting more of the reps? And second question, what was it like for you out there the entirety of that practice wearing a mask out in the heat?
So I'm actually now – I'll answer your second question first. In regards to the mask, it's different for me to not have a mask on now. I've been not intentional, but I've been wearing a mask in my office by myself just because I'm so used to it, having it on at all times, and it's convenient. The other night I went home and my 4 boys were in the house, and I had the same mask on. They looked at me like, what's going on? And so I'm just used to having it on. So that part's easy. For the quarterbacks, we are going to stretch that out as far as we possibly can. There's limited reps, limited time. So we're going to maximize those numbers that we have and literally take it as far as we need to go. And we just both of these guys have experience in this game, and I think that that's only what's fair.
Mark?
Hey, Matt, we saw Artie Burns with the 1s and Jalen Johnson, not a lot of, and Kevin Tolliver with the 2s. Just curious about where you stand on those 3 guys, what their status is, and also in general, guys we didn't see a lot of, Robert Quinn, Khalil Mack. I mean, is there anybody who didn't play a lot because they are injured or unable to participate?
No, that's a good question, though, Mark. I think the biggest thing for the corner position is right now, again, it's trying to get an idea as to – I think every day might be a little bit different as we play more and more and they start getting guys in there to get a feel for what they can do well and can't do well. Artie's first-round draft pick has been in this league. He has experience, so just naturally for him to be able to come in here with Kevin Tolliver, I think that's normal. You'll probably end up seeing more and more reps as the days and weeks go on with Jalen because, again, we need to evaluate. That's a very important position that we need to get it right. And only time will tell with reps. And the other guys, you mentioned Robert Quinn. The biggest thing with us is right now with the tempo that we're at and easing into this thing and ramping into it, there's some veterans here that we're just trying to make sure that what matters most is that they're ready to go for Detroit. And, they're certainly in that batch. And so we got to stay conditioned. We still got to have the thumping and some of the live and thud that goes on in practice. But we want to be smart about how we do it so that they're ready on September 13th.
Thank you.
Adam Johns?
Hey, Matt, we saw the guys give Cole Kmet a hard time today with the false start. I'm just curious, as these practices add up, what are you learning about what he can handle day after day as he tries to build a rapport with Mitch and Nick?
That's what I think is really cool, Adam, is to see is how do these young guys react to a drop ball or a false start. And then, like you said, you could hear everybody on the sideline razzing them a little bit. And that's what this is all about. Is Cole's not going to be phased from it. He's a guy that he'll tell you, hey, I made a mistake. Next time I won't jump off sides or I won't false start. As a coach, one of the things that we like to look for is not making the same mistake twice and being able to refocus your attention to making a good play. And I know that he'll do that. But our guys are in good spirits right now. They could not wait to get going, which was neat to see. We're tired of the meetings. We're ready for the pads. We're ready to go against each other. now it's time. It's here. Again, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, hope everybody here is doing well. It probably felt good to see all you guys out there and get some fresh air and see us running around and playing some music and just having a good time. So we're back at it, and it's soon going to be here.
Matt Zahn.
Hey, Coach. You talked about wearing a mask the entire time out there. Obviously you can't do really social distancing when you're doing a football practice, but are there precautions or safety things you're thinking about while you guys are out there on the practice field, or is that all done beforehand?
A lot of it is the risk mitigation that's done beforehand when we're in, like, for instance, being inside in meeting rooms here at Hallis Hall or Walter Payton Center. It's mandatory that they have their mask on. That's a rule that we have. It's risk mitigation. It's just proven and shown that helps the best in spreading it and containing it. So when you're outside, it's also been proven that it's not as contagious when you're outside. So we can't make the players wear their mask when they're outside here in practice, but we can with the coaches. And so that's just what we're doing. And we've had no pushback with that. So far so good in regards to, with where we're at and how we're handling this thing. And I think what happens is the first couple of days or week or two, it might be a little bit new, but now it's becoming a normal. So what we don't want to do now, though, is we don't want to lax on that and get sleepy with that and all of a sudden, have an issue. So that's our job as leaders to make sure that we all hold each other accountable.
JD?
Matt, from our vantage point, we can only see so much. The face shield thing, the prototype that the league sent out for the guys to check out. I know Ryan said a couple weeks ago when you guys had that call together that wasn't going to be mandatory. Did anyone wear that? Are you aware of anyone wearing that face shield thing this year?
That's a great question. I didn't take notice of that. I'll have to ask around on some of the guys and see if they did. I know it's kind of sleek in regards to being able to see it because it's clear. So I'll have to ask around and see where guys are at. I know some guys were talking about it, but I'm not sure how many guys actually did. I'll have to keep more attention to that and see.
JJ?
Hey, Matt, with this being the first padded practice today, one of the things I wrote in my notebook was that Juan Castillo sounds like an offensive line coach. What was it like just to see him working with those players with the pads on for the first time today?
Well, it was good. He was actually pretty low key today. He gets pretty crazy at times, and today was a low key day, which is okay. I think he wanted to kind of just let the guys get a feel to getting his pads on. But Juan's a competitive human being. He's very passionate about what he does, and you guys could see that. So I'm glad that y'all saw how he is and how he works, how he teaches, how he loves his guys up. But he's gonna get competitive now with that defensive line and with Jay Rogers. But we talk about let's be competitive, but let's not be combative. That's where you have a fine line, and I think the great teams do that. They stay away from making it personal. It's task related, and both Jay and Juan do a really good job with that, with keeping that balance. And we want to just continue that here as we go. But he's a fiery guy, Coach Castillo, and we're very lucky to have him.
I've got time for a few more. Dan, go ahead.
Matt, you talked in December about how important the offseason was going to be in terms of staying on the same page with you and Ryan. Over the last 7 months, what has left an impression on you, first in terms of the roster rebuilding and revisions that you guys did, and then as far as the COVID troubleshooting, what's left an impression on you about Ryan over the last 7 months?
Yeah. So what it is, Dan, with Ryan is I personally, coming into Chicago, have always been built on learning it with other places I've been at, of over communicating. And Ryan does that even more probably, which is so good. When you have a head coach and a GM that are united in being able to make sure that you're both comfortable with your opinions and how you feel. And when there's a decision that needs to be made, we do it together. And so the support that he's given me, whether it's, running these Zoom team meetings and we get all these guests. For example, we have all these guest speakers that come in. I think it was around 25 guest speakers that we had come in. Of the 25 guest speakers, they're all a minimum an hour talking to us. So that's 25 hours. we've gone through there and we're able to now have the quotes and the video of the discussions and such great points that those guest speakers made. Ryan and his staff took the time to go through those and create cut-ups for us so that we have those and we can use those to remind ourselves. So that's just a small example of something that probably a lot of GMs don't do, but he does that, and his personnel does that to help us out. So, and then same thing with the draft. When we get to the draft, we just try to help each other out, communicate, and just make sure we're doing everything we possibly can the right way for the Chicago Bears. And what's best, and there's some hard decisions and hard discussions, but whatever we're doing, we want to make sure that it's the best for this organization. And from the first day that I've been here till right now, our relationship has been the same. It's even stronger now. And I think our team and our players and our coaches definitely feel that.
Brad?
I'm curious, I didn't see Robert Quinn in any of the team drills. Is there anything going on with him? And does Sherrick McManus have an injury?
Yeah, no, in regards to Sherrick had a shoulder. It's nothing to be worried about for him. And then with Robert, he had a personal issue that he was dealing with. And so we're just it's kind of going back to what I was saying is he dealt with that. And now we're back to kind of physically just making sure we're smart in regards to how we handle him as a vet. He's been playing this game a long time, and we want to make sure that we do it the right way. And that's just kind of the plan that we're on right now, but it's nothing for us that, is concerning. We just want to take our time with it.
All right, last question, Pat Finley.
Hey, Matt, in the offseason, you talked about Mitch taking the news of Nick Foles the right way in exuding a confidence and maybe a little bit of an anger. What have you seen as have all gotten back together in terms of his attitude and the way he's carried himself?
So, Pat, it's a really good question, and it's hard over Zoom. You can't see how it's going on, but now that we're here together for several weeks, you're able to see the transformation of those two, their relationship, and it's a credit to both of them. You asked about Mitch. I was telling Ryan the other day that I feel like just from my observation of the times that I'm watching Mitch from afar, or whether it's in a meeting room observations or in, out at practice or walking to the weight room, whatever he's doing, there's just a great intention for him right now to worry about playing quarterback the best that he can and not worry about anything else. On top of that, being a good teammate with not only the players on offense and the rest of his teammates on defense, but being a good teammate to Nick as well. And so what you see is it becomes easy for both of them to have that and do that because Nick is the same way. It's reciprocated. Those guys right now, when they watch tape, they're genuinely helping each other out. They're supporting each other. And you feel that. And it makes life so much easier for them when they're in the huddle trying to play as best as they can. And so Mitch, he's in a place right now mentally that I really just feel like is really good. This is now going into the third year with me and me being able to learn who he is. I like where he's at. That's a credit to Coach DiFilippo with John, a credit to Bill Lazor, and a credit to Dave Ragone for all of those guys to make sure that room goes the right way, and then to the players. And so time will tell now. I think situationally is where it's going to be really valuable for us as coaches to be able to evaluate that when the team situations are going, how do they handle things? And so now that we're able to start stacking practices, that's going to be a big part of the process. And we have a way to evaluate that we as offensive coaches feel really good about, and we're just going to let them play it out. Like we said, roll the ball out, have no agenda, and may the best man win.
For joining us today. Good afternoon, Adam and Ryan. Thank you very much. We'll start right away into questions, and we will start with Tracy Myers from NHL.com. Tracy, your line is active, and you can go ahead.
Hi, guys. Thanks for doing this. Ryan, my question's for you. I wanted to ask you about your former teammate, Riley Smith, and just the kind of person that he is, the player that we've seen, and was he one of the guys that you knew could be somebody to deal with here in these playoffs?
Yeah, I think he was a guy we were focused on when the series started. He always seems to play good in the playoffs. The one year we went on that run, I mean, he was a huge part of our success, and he does it all. He's power play, penalty kill. He plays a lot of hard minutes. He just works really hard and has a lot of skill to go with it. So I think we knew that going into him. He'd be a guy we'd have to play hard and make it hard, and going forward, we need to make it harder on him.
Our next question is from Charlie Remeliotis from NBC Sports Chicago. Charlie, go ahead.
This is for Ryan. You guys have killed all 14 straight penalties in this series, and I know obviously Corey came up big yesterday, but what's been clicking for you guys in that department?
Well, yeah, I mean, mostly I think it always starts with your goalie. And so, yeah, Crow gives us a lot of confidence. It seems like eventually you're going to give up some shots and some chances on the power play. You try to limit it as much as you can and stick to the details and getting your clears and being in shot lanes and really making them hard to generate chances. But I think he's bailed us out when they've gotten some of those grade A chances. And I think we were trying to just build, and it's just been a short time to really gain momentum and gain confidence. And so early, I know it's going back, but in Edmonton series, we weren't happy with how we started. I think we were doing a lot of things right, but we were just focusing on just getting better, whether we're having the results or not. And so I think it's starting to show a little bit, but it's going to continue to be a huge factor in this series, and we need to have a good performance game 5.
We'll now go to Carter Baum from Blackhawks.com. Carter, your line is active and you can go ahead.
Adam, this one's for you. As a rookie coming in and getting your first taste of playoff action, what's this experience been like? And just continuing to try and improve game after game, and I'm sure adjust to the level that you guys are playing at.
Yeah, obviously it's a lot of different from regular season. You know, the speed, everything got think quicker and stuff. But I think it's a lot of new experience for me. You know, I'm just trying to take everything in and learn. And so now it's big games coming up here. Game 5, so I think that's it.
We'll now go to Ben Pope from the Chicago Sun-Times. Ben, your line's active and you can go ahead.
Kind of building on Charlie's question to you, Ryan, both the Knights and Oilers had great power plays during the regular season. What have you guys done to try to strategize against that, in addition to the impact that Corey has had in goal?
I don't know. I guess you don't want to give away too much, but there's players you try to take away. There's tendencies of power plays that you try to focus on, and you try to watch film and be able to maybe anticipate where a pass may go in a certain situation. But yeah, we're trying. I think too, we've had success early. We're trying not to get too high and just try to stay even keel. We're trying to stay that way too when the pucks seem to be going in against us in the Edmonton series. So I think you start to gain confidence. You start to gain chemistry again with the pairings you go out there with. But again, Corey's been awesome for us back there, and I think it always starts with your goalie being the best PKer.
Our next question is from Phil Thompson from the Chicago Tribune. Phil, your line's active. You can go ahead.
This is for Adam. I wanted to know what you learned from, or what you took in from your game off, and also with the pairings being kind of mixed up. You guys produced a lot of block shots. Can you say what adjustments you made and how you guys turned in so many blocks?
Yeah, I think it was good for me, to get a game off there. I wasn't playing really good, but then, get some rest, and I think it was good for the team as well. They played a really good game. It was different to see it from up there, It seems so speedy down there, but from up there it's a little bit different. So I think that was pretty good. But now, got a big game 5 and stuff. So, and then with block shots, I think, everyone wants to win to every price. So you just got to do everything you can to try to have the puck outside the net. So, and then, that Ryan said, Crow has been really good back there as well. So.
Our next question is from Scott Powers with The Athletic. Scott, your line's active. You can go ahead.
Ryan,
Ryan, you guys have been in the bubble for 3 weeks now, and I mean, obviously the playoffs are usually a grind, but you're away from your family. And how much of this is just different? And maybe when you guys aren't playing hockey, how I guess just what's the world like? And is it difficult being away from family, or is technology and all that stuff make it a lot easier?
Yeah, it's hard. It's harder for me. I have a wife and 2 kids. It's so hard on my wife right now. It's like she's a single mom. So I just try to give her a lot of credit and build her up as much as I can. She's doing such a great job, but I miss them a lot. It's kind of part of it. We kind of just knew coming in, this is what it would be like. I mean, I couldn't imagine what I'd be doing without FaceTime and being able to talk to them and sending videos and just seeing what the kids are up to and what their days are like. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, life is definitely different when you're in the middle of the series. Like today is just mostly a recovery day. It's nice to watch hockey. We're really just, our mind is so, I don't know, entrenched in the series that's all we're really focusing on, is either recovering or getting ready for the next game. And so that's what's nice about playoffs too, is it's pretty simple focus. But yeah, it's definitely been tough missing the family.
Our next question is from Scott King with NBC Sports Chicago. Scott, you can go ahead.
This is for Adam. When you had the time off, when you had the game off, what did you reflect on that you can do better in your game, and how do you think you can do it?
Yeah, I think, you see from up there, like gap and everything like that. And then I watch my shift with the D coach as well. So you kind of like, go into your head and like think what you can do better, like gap control closer to your guy in the D zone, and jump into play more, get more confident with the puck and stuff. So, and I obviously want to do more out there. I think I can do, I can have a next level in my game as well, and want to help the team to win at every price. So I think, I think I can do better.
Our next question is from John Dietz with the Daily Herald. John, your line is active and you can go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, just kind of going on the playoff theme for a second. Does the not traveling keep you guys fresher? There's been a lot of long travel for some series in the past. The Hawks having to go to Anaheim and then to Tampa Bay, and I know Vegas going to Washington and all those kinds of things. The longer the playoffs goes, the more of a grind it is. Is that something that's kept you guys fresher, is just being able to stay in one spot?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that, but I think it definitely has to. Anytime you're flying, it throws you off and throws your sleep off a little bit, especially if you're going cross country. Those long series can really affect both teams. And so, I'm sure we're all in the same playing field here and all in the same time zone. So it's all equal. We're all in the same ice conditions. We're all dealing with the same stuff. But I think it's definitely helping us recover. I don't know if I've ever played a back-to-back in playoffs, but I'm sure you see every team has to deal with that too. So today's a big recovery day for us.
Adam and Ryan, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We appreciate it. Media, please hold the line, and we will continue. We'll go right into questions, and we'll start with Charlie Roumeliotis from NBC Sports Chicago. Charlie, your line's active. Go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy. I wanted to ask you about the penalty kill. Obviously, you guys are a perfect 14 for 14 in the series. What's been working so well in that area outside of obviously getting good goaltending?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys contributing. As you said, the goaltender is a big part of it. He's been really good. We talk about getting clears, making sure get the puck 200 feet down every time we get a chance. I think the biggest thing is just winning the battles around the net on loose pucks, rebounds, those types of things, letting Crow see as much as possible. I think everyone's doing a great job.
Our next question is from Phil Thompson with the Chicago Tribune. Phil, your line is active and you can go ahead.
Hi, Jeremy. Adam talked about seeing the game from up top and that it really helped him a lot. What differences did you see and what lessons did you retain from you giving him that day off?
I just think you need a break, and it's tough level here in the playoffs, and we're playing an excellent team, and they play a physical game. We think he can make a few more plays. He's a skilled offensive defenseman, and we want him playing on his offensive instincts, and we feel like he can give us more, whether it's off the breakout or on the offensive blue line. And I think he did do that in his 2 games since he was out. And again, he's a young player, and just him being in this environment is great for him. But we're happy with him, and he's going to continue to get better.
We will now go to Chris Bowden from WGN Radio. Chris, your line's active. You can go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, I know this is a question you can probably answer better later on down the road, whenever you're not playing, but how much of a factor, positive factor, do you think it is winning that game last night and keeping your team alive, and how much that can mean moving forward?
Well, it means we're in the series still and we have a chance to come back. We feel that, again, the first 3 games, we're probably hard done by to have 0 wins, and probably stole one last night. And now we got the chance to take momentum in the series and put some pressure on them. So we're here to win. We're here to compete, and we want to beat them. And I think just happy with the character of our group. It wasn't easy yesterday. They were really good for 2 periods in particular, but we found a way to win.
Our next question is from Scott Powers with The Athletic. Scott, your line is active, and you can go ahead.
Jeremy, the last three goals you guys have scored have all been in transition off the rush. What is there any key to that? I mean, is that something you guys are looking at doing? What challenge, I guess, do they present to do that consistently?
Well, we got to be cleaner when we do win the puck back. I think there's opportunities there. We got to be cleaner. There's it's reaction to a loose puck, or after you create a turnover and then get going. And I think there's more opportunities there for us. We just got to take advantage. So that's a big part of our team. That's what we've been good at all season. We can create offense in transition, and I think it also keeps the other team honest too, that they know they're going to be ready to defend.
Our next question is from Carter Baum from Blackhawks.com. Carter, your line's active. You can go ahead.
Jeremy, you talked about last night how Corey Crawford might have won you guys that game, especially in the first 2 periods. How much of a luxury is it to have a guy like that who can step up and almost do it single-handedly, as well as guys like Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, and just kind of have multiple different options of guys who can take over a game almost on their own?
Well, in the playoffs, your veteran leadership is important, and they've been through it before. They know what it's like to be down in a series and come back, and that's important for our young guys to hear that we're not out of it, and we can turn momentum. They speak from experience. They've been there, and Crow was great. He gave us exactly what we needed last night.
We'll now go to Ben Pope with the Chicago Sun-Times. Ben, your line's active. You can go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy. Danny Wirtz being with you guys in the bubble, how has it been getting to know him during this time period, and what do you think of sort of his vision for the future?
Yeah, it's been fun to have him around. He's part of the group. When you're in the bubble here, the people that are here, you spend a lot of time together, eating meals together and watching games and all those things. So it's been fun to have him around. I'm sure for him just to be that much closer to the team, especially at such an important time of year, playoff time, and to have a little bit of success. That's fun.
Our next question is from John Dietz with the Daily Herald. John, your line's active. You can go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, they always say you build a championship from the net out. And I'm just curious, how important is it to you to keep a consistent presence back there? We don't know what's going to happen with Corey, but, to keep that continuity so that maybe he stays there for another year or two, even though he has been injured here and there. Is that an important thing for you going forward?
He's been great for us. Obviously tough situation for him with, missing almost all of training camp and not a lot of time to get going. We kind of threw him in there with only a few days of practice, and I think he's gotten better as the playoffs have gone on here. The clinching game against Edmonton, he was fantastic, particularly in the 3rd period. And again, when the series has really gotten the games have gotten bigger, he's come through for us.
We'll go back to Scott Powers with The Athletic. Scott, your line is active. You can go ahead.
Jeremy, Ryan Carpenter was mentioning about having a young family and how difficult this is in some ways being in the bubble. And I know the playoffs are a grind and usually you don't get to see your family a whole lot. But even for you, I guess, who have young kids, and are there pros, cons to being in a bubble and I guess being able to focus on hockey, or does technology allow this to make it a little bit easier?
Yeah, I mean, no one drew it up like this as far as how the season was going to finish, and we didn't know if we're going to have a season. So you can't expect the circumstances to be perfect. I think it's pretty impressive that the league and everyone involved has found a way to have this happen, and I think they've done a great job. Part of that is we got to be in this bubble to allow everyone to stay healthy enough so we can play. So yeah, of course it's hard being away from your kids, especially when you're young. They change fast, and you can't help but miss milestones here as they happen, but just try and keep in touch. And my two older ones, they're old enough that they love watching the games, so they're getting some excitement out of it and enjoying the run with everyone else. And hopefully we can get a couple more wins to keep them happy.
Jeremy, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Media, thank you very much, and we'll talk tomorrow.
What's up, Chicago? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're streaming live on Facebook, broadcasting from the world's famous WCPT 820 AM studios in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the outstanding neighborhood of Jefferson Park. This is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. It is the fastest hour in sports conversation, and let's get right to it, ladies and gentlemen. You love him. He wasn't a cardboard figure over there at the friendly confines. He wasn't a cardboard figure.
Anywhere.
But ladies and gentlemen, he's live. And that's interesting. When you hear with people, hey, you got a live person on the other end of the phone. When you make a phone call, right? I go, well, I hope that person's not dead. Of course not. But ladies and gentlemen, he's alive and thriving. Here in WCPT, the studios, he's known as the Marvelous One. He's Dan Marver. Hey. What's up, Marver? How are you?
Doing, Jerry? I wish I was a real person in the stands, but that looks like that's a ways off. And they're really doing a good job with the crowd noise. I think they refined that, so that it sounds like there are people there, which is kind of cool. And it looks like, things are going well for baseball, except for obviously the Cardinals and now the Reds. It's just kind of sad, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of 7-inning doubleheaders that are going to be. They may have to go for 5-inning triple headers eventually. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the Cubs ran into Josh Hader, and their little streak ended. They've lost 3 in a row. But the Sox, played the Cardinals. Cardinals came out of COVID hell, and they're playing again. So Cubs and Sox play this coming weekend each other.
Yeah.
Should be fun.
It should be fun. He said.
Yeah.
We're just getting everything together regarding the studios. It is the fastest hour in sports conversation. Talk about some exciting baseball. Not incredible baseball, but some exciting baseball. I'm not really a big fan, especially after the Sox got swept.
Of the 7 innings.
The 7 innings. I'm not a really big fan of the 7-inning, double headers, but I get it and I understand it. But you know me. And if you don't know me, you will know me. I love what the Cubs are doing, despite what happened this afternoon. Right?
Yeah.
I love what they're doing. They're just buckling down and playing baseball, and going day in and day out, and they're taking care of themselves as far as COVID is concerned. They're doing what they're expected to do, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. But over on the South Side.
Yeah.
And and everyone who knows me have been following the Rewind Sports 60 over the past few years, and particularly and especially since Ricky Renteria went from the north side to the south side. I haven't been a really big fan of his. I have not really been a big fan of Ricky Renteria. And I got to tell you, would you agree with me, Marvelous One, that the White Sox have probably one of the best offensive juggernaut in a team over on the south side with all the bats that they have from top to bottom.
Well, they showed it today. They got 4 homers in a row, so that's pretty good.
Speaking of which, 4 homers in a row. Do we have that soundbite? Paul Javari is filling in for Devin Tingle, our producer. Paul, do you have that soundbite of the? Can you play that for us, NBC Sports Chicago?
Maybe.
You got it?
You got it right in front of you.
Where is it?
0816, right on your array.
Oh, man.
Well, we'll talk about Moncada, Grandal, Abreu, and Jimenez. Yeah.
Where is it? Where is it? Paul!
Right in front of you on your array. Should be 0816. Sox hit 4 homers.
I don't even see it, man.
Well, we summarized it.
Yeah, we did summarize it, but it was Jason Benetti and Steve Stone on the call. Back to back to back to back jacks, man. I mean, they were jacking it. Where is it, Paul?
Yeah, and the exit velocities were 105, 108.
Way over here.
112 and 101. All of them were over 100 exit velocities. Yeah.
Field, look out, Goose. It's a 3-run shot.
You could take it to the bank. He was going to get a fastball after spiking 2 balls in the dirt.
Neither did Yaz. Another absolute blitzkrieg.
Boom!
5-0 Sox. Let's go grooving on a Sunday afternoon.
A couple were. He's certainly that.
And twice this week. Oh boy, that one a line drive to left field and bring him home. 3 in a row. Abreu has the last one, and Tim's having a party. In the air, left field. Eloy Jimenez to the line and gone again. 4 in a row and a 7-0 lead.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
A very tough debut.
That was incredible.
He's talking about tough debut. Was the first appearance in the MLB for the pitcher Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that was incredible, and it was a great call, and it was a great burst of offensive punch for the Chicago White Sox. And we know the potential that this lineup has and the threat that they are on any given day. Unfortunately, it's not consistent. And, of course, when you win the game, you're pretty much going to give the credit to the players because they're playing their tails off, they're doing what they're expected to do, and they get the results that you're looking for. When they lose, in particular, getting swept. Who swept them? Tell me. Help me out here. Marvelous, who swept the White Sox?
Who swept the White Sox?
Yeah, come on.
When?
Was it the Cardinals?
No. I don't believe so.
Who swept the doubleheader yesterday?
Oh, the Cardinals yesterday.
Yeah, it was the Cardinals who swept the doubleheader yesterday. Now, weren't the Cardinals the team with the problems as far as Corona was concerned?
And that's why Roel Ramirez was pitching, because they ran out of pitchers who were all sick.
How do you get swept by a team? They got 20 people with COVID, and you get swept by them, and you're supposed to be a juggernaut of an offensive team.
They were relaxed, the Cardinals. They all came up in rental cars.
Come on, man. Hey, listen, let me tell you something. The White Sox, we talked about this last week with Gordon Whitmire and said, hey, listen, this is the training wheel season for both the Cubs and the Sox. You got the training wheels on, man. You zoom down that sidewalk. You zoom down the sidewalk. Because next season, if everything goes accordingly, we get back to some normalcy, you got to take the training wheels off and get down to business. 162 games. Right. You got 60 games here. You got the training wheels on. You let the little kids fly. You let them go. There's no reason on God's green earth, in my opinion, that the White Sox should be getting swept by the St. Louis Cardinals, who only played 5 games.
Well,
they were 2 and 3?
Yeah, they were 2 and 3 going.
They were 2 and 3. You playing 5 games, and you can't even you let them come here and you get swept? Are you kidding me?
Well, that's because they were playing high school rules, 7-inning games.
There should have been a slaughter rule with that offense that the White Sox have. They just cranked out back jacks today.
Yeah.
There's no reason for the White Sox. That team that they have over there, they should average at least 5 or 6 runs a game. Mm-hmm. 5 or 6 runs a game, Ricky Renteria. So when the team wins, when they win, the credit goes to the players. When they lose, Ricky Renteria, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, what the hell did I didn't do? Well, what did I do to screw this thing up? Listen, the only thing you have to do, this is all that he has to do, Marvelous.
You're right. Well, I mean, with 16 teams making the playoffs, they
Listen,
can get in.
Listen, I don't know if we're going to get through this season, and there's a lot of baseball still left, especially if they're the St. Louis Cardinals, right? I don't know if we're going to get through the season, but if we do, and we get to the postseason, and we can muster up some things, I swear to you, this is the time that you will see the Cubs and the Sox. You should see the Cubs and the Sox in the series.
And the Sox are 11-11, and a 500 record might be good enough to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I don't know how far we're going to go with this guy, with this manager. What the heck is wrong with him? Yeah, listen, the only thing he has to do, Marvelous, is right up the. And I wasn't even trying to get on Ricky Renteria. That wasn't even my job today. What only thing this guy has to do is goes, hey, you know how every week I give you guys a lineup, right? I give you guys a lineup. I type up the lineup. I go, okay, who's we got the guests on? Our guest today, we got Tom Dreesen, a great comedian, entertainer from the Chicagoland area. He's going to be joining us later in the broadcast. Sam Acho is standing by in the on-deck circle. He's got a lot to talk about as well. But I send you guys the lineup, the rundown, every week. I send it to you. This is what we're going to discuss. This is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to take the breaks. The only thing that Ricky Renteria needs to do is write up the lineup card.
Well, I would have lost a bet. I would have bet that Boylan would have lasted longer than Renteria.
Oh, jeez, that's another one. The only thing he has to do is write up the lineup card. That's all he has to do. Sit back in the dugout, cross his legs, and wait for the game to end. That's all he has to do. He can't even get that right. He can't. Only thing, and listen, if the guys aren't hitting, if they're not hitting, i.e. in a doubleheader yesterday, only thing he has to do is go, hey, wait a minute, guys, it's the fifth inning. We're only playing 7 innings here. What I need you to do is just do what you're paid to do, swing the bat, knock the ball out of the ballpark, and we can go home.
Well, occasionally he has to make some pitching moves, too.
Listen, I know pitching and defense wins championship. Right now, we're not trying for a championship. We're just trying to win a freaking game, and we're trying to split a doubleheader if we can't sweep the doubleheader. So if I got the firepower of what this guy has, I know that there have been injuries. I know that TA has been out. I know that these guys are laboring. I know Lori Garcia is out with the ligament in his thumb or whatever. I get all of that. But let me tell you something. You got those bats in there. This kid, Luis Robert, you got these kids. Dude, just tell them, hey, listen, only thing I need for you to do is get one hit today. One hit.
I think they're going to be okay. They got the Tigers and the Cubs and the Pirates and the Royals.
Hey, you're not listening to me.
Okay.
You're not listening to me.
It doesn't matter who they play.
Listen, it doesn't matter who they play. You're right. It matters who's in the dugout and what he's doing. And I think Ricky Renteria overthinks. I think he's overthinking situations. He wants to make himself feel viable. He wants to make himself feel like he is needed, that he's worthwhile, and that he knows what he's doing. And I'm not taking anything away from Ricky Renteria, but I still haven't, the jury's still out for me as far as his managerial skills and what he's capable of doing on the major league level. And I'm afraid in this shortened season, in my opinion, the Sox, offensively, they can stand toe-to-toe with anybody. They should be able to stand toe-to-toe to anybody. And if your pitching is not up to snuff, I'm telling you, this team is equipped to score at least 5 to 6 runs a game, in my opinion. He said.
You're right.
What do you think, Marvelous?
I mean, obviously, they have, probably the most potent offensive lineup of any team right now. I mean, and so much youth. There's nothing to say about that except for that there's a lot. It's a bright future. So hopefully they can someday get a real manager.
Well, hopefully someday they will get a manager. He's Dan Marver, the Marvelous One. I'm Jerry Riles. Lauren Cox has the day off. She is on assignment. We'll get a chance to chat with her next week, that's for sure. You want to give us a call. Our number is 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. We go to our TR60 hotline and we welcome this gentleman back to the program. He is a friend of the program, ladies and gentlemen. He is currently, and he'll correct me if not, but he's currently a free agent in the National Football League. Last he laced him up for your beloved Chicago Bears, linebacker. He's on our TR60 hotline and he's helping people out in the meantime between snaps, off season, Corona, and of course, whatever else he's doing, he's helping folks out. He's on our TR60 hotline. He's Sam Acho. Sam, how are you, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, you said I'd correct you if I needed to. So last I laced them up was with Tampa Bay. So I was with Tampa Bay at the end of last season.
That's true.
But man, I'm so glad to be on with you guys. So like you said, training, COVID, everything, and also got a book coming out called "Let the World See You: How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes." That book is available at SamAchobook.com. But I am so glad to be on with you.
Well, you know what? I knew you were with Tampa Bay, but we're not really thinking about them. We don't really care about them, especially because that incredible, the guy they call the GOAT as far as the National Football League is concerned, is down there now. We want to remember you in the orange and blue. We want to remember Sam Acho kicking some butt for the beloved Chicago Bears. But hey, man, you're doing some stuff outside the gridiron, off the field, man, and in the neighborhoods. And the last time we had a chance to talk with you, it was probably a week after, where you and a selective group of individuals, some current professional athletes and some community leaders on the West Side, you went over and explained this and help us out here. Yeah, you went and you guys purchased a liquor store and then you turned it into a grocery store?
Yeah, so you're right, 100% right. So last we talked, me and a lot of the pro athletes on the different Chicago teams, so guys like Jonathan Taves, Mr. Trubisky, Malcolm Subban, Jason Hayward, Jason Kibnis, Ryan Arcidiacono, and so on and so forth, got together to purchase a liquor store in what was called a food desert on the west side of Chicago, right? 2 grocery stores, 17 liquor stores in a half-mile radius, food desert. And so we purchased that with the intent to build something, right? Or at least to start something, to build or start a food mart. And actually this Wednesday, is going to be the soft opening of the food mart that we were dreaming of. And so what that looks like is going to be a temporary, almost like open air concept for the summer as we continue to work through permits, et cetera, and build a permanent edifice down the line.
No, that sounds fantastic. And you guys are in the Austin community?
That's right. We're in the Austin community on the west side of Chicago. We just noticed that place, like the South Side, like certain places in Chicago specifically, had a need. And so something didn't feel right. It did not feel right being in that neighborhood and seeing what we saw, so we wanted to do something about it.
Now, you know what? I'm very happy and ecstatic that you guys were able to get out there and begin to make a difference, make a change. It's kind of like starting to build a foundation out there to change the culture and the environment, the neighborhood. But unfortunately, Sam, maybe a couple weeks after all of that transpired and you started your transitioning, there was and it's very well documented, and you're certainly aware of it, but there were, unfortunately, looting and some rioting going on pretty much throughout the city of Chicago, but in particular downtown on the Magnificent Mile, and then it branched out toward the west side. Was the store or the area hit with these protesters and the looting that was taking place a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, so this specific area wasn't hit with the recent looting, and I think just for clarity's sake, because I know when I saw that, I was angry.
Yeah.
Angry. What is going on? Why are we doing this? And for clarity's sake, some people think of rioting and looting and protesting, and they put them all in the same basket. And from what I've heard and what I've understood, this is in a very different basket than the protesting that was going on months and really weeks and months ago. And so anyways, no, the liquor store that's turning into a food mart wasn't hit. But obviously people's hearts are still not in the right place, whether you are a looter or the people who are oppressing the people who are looting, right? There's still a divide, a loss of trust.
Yeah, you know what, Sam Acho, former Chicago Bear linebacker, current free agent, and community activist on our TR60 hotline. Real quick, let me ask you this question, because we understand, what's going on and what needs to take place in this city to move away from the violence and the crime and build, education and businesses and build up neighborhoods. But unfortunately, the recent riots that we just experienced and witnessed here in this city, I was kind of disturbed. And I don't know if you saw this soundbite, and if you did, love to hear your thoughts on it. But there was a young lady out there who said that, you know what? We need to get out there. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but she basically said we need to get out there and loot and destroy. She didn't use the word destroy. I'm using it. But in essence, she said it's a part of reparations, because this is what we're owed as a people. And if you're not going to give it to us, we're going to take it. And like you said, it was disturbing. It made you angry. But this is the mentality of some of the young folks that are out there saying, hey, we're due and we're old. And if you're not going to give it to us, you're not going to listen to us, we're going to take it. What are your thoughts behind that? Did you hear that comment?
Yeah, so, by no means do I condone or will I ever condone looting, right? To me, it makes no sense. But what I will say is that sometimes when you see rioting, you see looting, you see frustration, I would say these are symptoms of a bigger problem. A prime example, I talk about this in my book, right? Let the World See You. I have this deal called the exercise-induced allergy. What would happen when I would play is after exercising so much or getting my blood level so high or whatever, all of a sudden I'd start itching, almost breaking out into hives. These were symptoms of a problem going on inside of me. My body was saying, hey, slow down. There's too much going on. Get some water, get some rest, right? And so the symptoms of that allergy, of that exercise, was this hive, right? This itching, these bumps. In the same way, the symptoms that we see, looting, rioting, protesting, etc., they're symptoms of a bigger problem. There are people who have been saying, hey, I've been oppressed for a really long time. You say get education, get schools, get food. I've been trying to, and I've been getting denied over and over and over again. And so by no means do I condone the looting, but what I am saying is let's also look at what's causing the looting. Let's look at the neighborhoods. Let's take a drive through some of the neighborhoods that have been segregated, right? Whether it's the Federal Housing Administration, whether it's just happenstance, right? Chicago's the most segregated city in the United States. This is the Chicago, right? Like top 3 cities segregated. That's a problem. And so we cannot continue ignoring problems and think there's not going to be any kind of people who are upset or frustrated, right? These people are upset. They're frustrated. Now, as I said from the very beginning, I was angry seeing some of this, the looting going on. People, why? This is not the answer. But at the same time, we also must look at what are the root causes of these symptomatic, responses to the state of our city.
Hey, Sam, this is Dan in the studio here. I see your book's coming out in October, Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's available for pre-order now. You can go to samachobooks.com. And the title of the book, like you said, is Let the World See You. But in all reality, this book is for anybody who, kind of wants to try and wrestle with some of these topics we're talking about. How do you be genuine?
Mm-hmm.
How do you be authentic? How do you actually be real with situations instead of just being sophomoric in our thinking and saying, well, these rioters, they're just mad and they're just angry. No, what's the thing behind the thing? What's the reason behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, just maybe, if we stepped up and we said, I'm going to be real with the situation and look at some of the implicit bias, some of the explicit bias, some of the overt racism, or maybe just some of the unconscious decisions we make. Maybe there's a better answer if I can be real with me, not just ignore what's going on in my heart. So this book is for anybody who, has been in their shell, maybe been hiding a little bit, and wants to know the joy that you get from being real with you and being real with others.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you were also involved with this infectious disease emergency response. The NFL is supposed to start in 4 weeks. What do you think is going to happen? The teams don't seem to really have a plan in place in most cases, correct?
Well, no. So since we talked last, the NFL actually has got their either, as you're talking about, the emergency disease infectious response plans in place. And so from the looks of it, the season's going to start on time. So that's not the question. The real question is what happens if there's an outbreak,
mm-hmm.
right? So like season's hoping to start on time. What happens if, like you look with the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball, and 7 out of the 20 guys get sick, almost half the team? What happens if you see what happened in college football? Many players are getting sick. So I think that's the real issue is, yes, season's going to start on time, but will there be a pause or a break in the season?
And that's a great question. Sam Macho, a former Chicago Bear, a community activist on our TR60 hotline. Sam, that's the interesting thing about it, because last week around this time, it was speculation that the Big Ten, and of course the Pac-12, they were looking to cancel the fall sports, the fall season. Of course, obviously, football, and then, within the next day or two, it became official. Now, 7 days later, you got parents from Ohio State. You got parents from Iowa. I think you even got some parents from Northwestern who are petitioning the commission and the Big Ten and saying, hey, you know what? We weren't included in this. No one asked our opinions about what we believe and what we thought regarding the season. And we think we need a voice. Justin Fields for the Ohio State Buckeyes, the quarterback, he has gotten 115,000 signatures on a petition to say, hey, wait a minute, we want to play. And Ohio State has been on record to say, listen, we have done everything in our power to make sure that our players are protected. And we are at the top of the list regarding protocol, yet you still pull the plug on it. So he's collected 115,000 signatures around the Big Ten to say, listen, we have a voice. We want to be included. You chancellors, your presidents who are making all these decisions regarding our future, we want a seat at the table as well. And he believes, as a student athlete, they deserve an opportunity to go out there and play. Now, you played your ball at Texas, correct? Your collegiate ball at Texas.
Yep.
Do you support these players who are coming out and flexing their muscles, so to speak, and say, you know what? We understand the risk factors regarding this coronavirus and COVID, but we feel that we're doing everything in our power to stay free of this. What are your thoughts on the decision regarding these athletes who want to come out and still continue to play this fall?
Yeah, Jerry. Well, it's funny. Somebody asked me this a few days ago. I was hosting a podcast, and one of my friends who was on it, they said, what would you do if you were one of those student athletes? How would you feel? And no one had ever asked me that question. I've been sitting here and negotiating with the NFLPA, et cetera. But once I really thought about it, my response was simple. I said, I would be devastated. I would be devastated if I had worked, maybe not my entire life, but a large majority of my life to go and play in college. Obviously, people talk about student athlete, but that student part in all reality is second. The athlete part is first. It's why you're there. I would be devastated if my season was canceled and it was out of my control. And so I love what some of these players are doing and going and signing petitions and getting people together to try and make a change. They're using their voice. Now, is it too little too late? Maybe. But, man, I'd be devastated. I really feel for some of these kids. And I say this from a unique place, right, because I've been on the NFLPA Executive Committee fighting for player rights and player health and safety, and if the season needs to be canceled, let's cancel it. But I was on that horse until I started listening to some of my teammates. They said, no, I need to play, man. I need to play. Without this, I don't know what I have. And that's kind of what goes back to just as issues of identity, right? Who are we as people? Like, who are we as individuals, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a radio host, whether you're a dad, whether you're a mom, like whoever's listening, like, who are you really, right? And that's what my book is all about, right? Like, getting to the core of who you are.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. Brandon Marshall, the fabulous wide receiver who played with the Bears and went out east, he was on a program, I think yesterday or sometime this weekend, and he was addressing pretty much the same topic as far as student athletes and the opportunity to continue to play this fall, or, you know, wait and see next spring what happens. And, you know, he said that when he was in college that, you know, his family didn't have a lot. I believe his mother was struggling. I believe he had a 16-year-old sister that was pregnant. His brother was, you know, trying to make a way, and he was like, you know what? Football is my out. Like you said, football is my out. It's my opportunity. And he said that he put his heart and soul into the sport, and it's changed his life and changed his family life for generations. But it was because when he was in college, he's like, I'm going to do any and everything in my power to succeed and make it to the next level, because it's not about me just going out there and playing football. It's about me making a big difference, not only in his family, but he also said he started businesses and hired over like 43, 45 people in the businesses that he started to help change their lives as well. And so, you know, these athletes, we look at it from an entertainment perspective and say, you know what, yeah, you know, you shouldn't be out there playing. Maybe you should go out and wait. But for many of these guys, it's the difference between night and day, and in some cases, living and dying. And so it's a very, very fine line, brother. It's a very, very fine line. And I think if I were in that situation, I dedicated my life to get to this particular point. I think I want to play as well. But science is science, man. And this one is a very, it's a very tricky one. It's a very difficult one. But I do side with the players and understand what the players are doing when they want to continue to play. Because it could jeopardize their future, especially if you're a senior.
Right, and that's the tough part, Jerry, because I'd ask you the same question. You answered it a little bit, but what would you do? Let's say take your position, let's say as a parent, right? And your son's getting ready to be a first-round pick, second-round pick, finally getting the starting lineup, and all of a sudden everyone else is playing, but your division got canceled. Like, how would you feel? I'm really interested. What would you say?
So I'll tell you a secret real quick, man. I went to the Ohio State University, and I was actually a part of the spring team. This is many moves ago. My son actually was a Buckeye as well, and he was going out for the team, and he tore his ACL, which was devastating for us. It literally was devastating for us. But to answer your question, if I were in that situation as a player and or a parent, I certainly will evaluate the situation as much as I possibly could and get all the answers that I possibly could. And depending on the skill set as far as my ability or my son's ability, I would make a very tough decision. But I'd say what's more important for me in the next 20, 25, 30 years? If I make it to the league, life expectancy is 2.5 to 3.5 years. And there's no guarantee, as you well know, because there are a lot of talented people around the country who are trying to get to this less than 1% as far as this league is concerned. My daughter was a great gymnast here in the Chicagoland area, regional. She went, nationals, and Baylor was interested in her, but they weren't willing to give us the type of money that we were looking for, in a nutshell. And so we had to decide, is gymnastics going to be something that you are going to thrive at, or do you want to start to focus on your education? And we took the route of education. She's now a junior at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, studying engineering. So I would look long-term and a more, what am I looking for? Long-term and a more stable outlook, as opposed to, chasing that dream, so to speak, unless I was a top-tier player. If I'm a top-tier player, hey, man, I'm going to be a free agent, knock on some doors and say, hey, man, give me a chance.
Jerry and Sammy, that's the thing. There's a lot of money involved, and then there's the question about eligibility, too, now. If they end up not playing and you're a senior, are you done?
Well, they'll give them the eligibility. Yeah. They already said back in March that a lot of the players who were these baseball players who were supposed to play in the spring, they get the opportunity to come back. And I think some of the basketball programs as well say you get to come back and you get that year of eligibility.
But I'm wondering, in the NCAA basketball, I'm not sure that they gave him an extra year.
Yeah, I think they did. But Sam, that in a nutshell, that's what I would do. That's what I would do if I were in that situation. Because we're approaching 200,000 deaths in this country regarding the coronavirus, and you just don't want to run the risk, man. And that's the way that I look at it. I can't put wealth ahead of health. I can't personally do it. But this is
I hear where you're coming from, Jerry, but you talk about that long-term 20, 30 years down the line. For a lot of these athletes, especially the ones who, as we mentioned, are already at Ohio State, which usually has the last couple of years 10-plus players drafted, right out of 20-some people in a seniors in a graduating class. My next 20, 30 years may be determined by what happens this year.
That's true.
Right, so I'm going on my 10th year in the NFL. What happened my junior year, my senior year, determined, yes, the average is 3.5. I'm not looking at that 3.5 or 3.1. I'm looking at, no, I'm different. Right, this is Texas, this is Ohio State, this is what I'm different. And I have been. And so imagine these athletes, right? Imagine how frustrated or angry. Like, that's what really changed my heart. Because like I said, initially I said, no, everything should be canceled. But then you just go and listen to some of the student athletes, some of the current athletes, the pro athletes, and you realize, oh, no, this is a lot of their futures, right? And that's why I encourage a lot of I was on the phone with a strength coach at Indiana who coaches basketball just now, and trying to share my book with them, right? SamMachoBook.com, the idea of, hey, we need to understand what we are behind the athlete, underneath the athlete. Because, yes, it doesn't mean that we're not going to make the hard decisions of playing or not playing, but it also gives us the freedom to go harder in both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't have to choose either gymnastics or academics. Maybe there's a way to do both. And I think you made the right decision with your daughter. I really do, right? But I think for a lot of athletes, it's a harder decision than a lot of us give them credit for.
No, you're right, man, and we can continue to talk about this, and we want to continue to talk about this with you, Sam Acho. But I got to think about this. Think about this before we let you go. What if you're an Olympic athlete? What if you're an Olympic athlete and you've reached your peak? This past summer was your turn, your time to shine. And if they're already talking about canceling, they pushed it back to 2021. Now they're already talking about canceling and just forgetting about it. What if you're an Olympic athlete and you've trained 4 years, 6 years, whatever, and now this thing has stepped in front and told you can't do it? That's what we're talking about here, man. It's
it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't enjoy cutting you off, but as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, I got a friend who's an Olympic athlete. One of my really good friends, she runs track for the U.S. Olympic team, and my thought was that she would have been devastated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, we're getting moved back to year. What's going to happen? But by God's grace, it was moved back a year, and for her, this is just another hurdle, right? If you have the discipline, the wherewithal, the mindset, the heart to train 4 years, just give me one more year, right? Don't cancel me. Don't cancel my seat. But just give me one more year, right? Just give me an opportunity. And so I think for a lot of these student athletes and athletes we're talking about right now, all we are asking for is an opportunity, right? That's it. So I don't care if you push me back. I don't care if you give me another eligibility. Just let me play. And if you're not going to let me play, give me an opportunity. A lot of people you see now, they're opting out and they're actually training to get ready for the NFL, right? It's about that opportunity. So I think COVID is just a hurdle for a lot of people, right? Now, obviously, don't take it lightly. It's, like I said, approaching 200,000 deaths, and a lot of people's families are affected. But for the Olympic athlete, in their mind, this is another hurdle, right? This is life. This is going to be hard, just like everything else. But this is a hurdle, and I have to not only approach it, but attack it.
No, I agree with you. Michael Phelps, the great sensational Michael Phelps, said, the one thing that may haunt these Olympic athletes is the fact that they've trained all these years to get to this point where they're peaking. Their bodies are peaking for this, 2-3 week time. And now they got to shut it down for another 365 days. And he said, a lot of these athletes, you got to watch out for them because mental strain and mental stress and anxiety that they carry with them, that could take a toll. And if you're a peak athlete, you know how it is. Yeah, it's another hurdle, but your psyche is saying, hey, I'm prepared for this. And then you go, whoa, man, I got to do this for another 365 days to get back to where I already had peaked. And he said the mental anguish that goes into that could take a really, really serious effect on these athletes. So, there's both ways of looking at it. And I just hope collectively, as we all said at the beginning of this, Sam, we're all in this together. Let's fight this thing. Let's get past it. And let's get back to some sort of normalcy. And let's get back to, watching some football, watching some basketball, watching some baseball. Although, if you're a Sox fan or a Cub fan?
Cubs.
Hey, man, the Cubs, did you see Javi Baez today at Hader? He hit a grounder to the right side, first base, and it looked like Little League. Did you see him? Hader made the put out.
I didn't.
It was the swim. It was Javi's famous.
It was
swim
hilarious.
move. Yeah.
It was hilarious. Javi hit a bouncer. Hader, the Brewers' closing ace. He's just striking out everybody. Javi was able to lay a bat on it down the right field, down the first baseline. Hader makes the move, gets the fields of play. Javi is running down the baseline. They meet at first base. Javi slows up, does kind of like a juke move, and Hader, instead of just touching the bag, tried to place the tag on Javi, and Javi nearly got underneath him, but nearly got underneath the tag to get on his foot on the base, and he was called out. But when you see the highlights later on tonight, it's going to look like something in Little League, man. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. But, it was a good play. It was a fun play. The Cubs, they should do well. The Sox, I don't know. Ricky Renteria, he got my britches burning, brother. To get my britches burning. But hey, man, thank you so very much. I appreciate you taking some time out. Both Marvelous and I appreciate you taking some time out, man. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we didn't get a chance to talk about the NFL and the voting initiative. So hopefully we can invite you back next week to talk a little bit more.
Man, I'd love to be back on. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Sam. We got to run, but we'll definitely stay in contact. You're the best.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
Sam.
Sounds good. Sam Acho on our TR60 hotline. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. I didn't know we were going to get this long regarding Sam Acho because we got another guest on tap here. But you saw the play, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's so famous for that swim move at second, and he's had some others where he's like in the baseline, in a rundown where he's juking and everything else. So Javi's pretty famous for those wild moves where he tries to avoid a tag.
Yeah, it was it was just funny to see. It was refreshing to see, and of course Javi was involved, and you're like, wow. So if you're watching a marquee sports network tonight, and you're watching the highlights or any of the highlights locally, whether it's 2, 5, 7, 9, and 32. You're certainly going to see this, or ESPN. You're certainly going to see that move. It was a great move, but it was a little league move, and it was just good to see, man. Even though they lost.
Yep.
What else is on your mind, Marvelous? You kind of like just in thought over there.
Well, we got the NBA playoffs finally starting, and we had that exciting play-in game between the Trailblazers and the Grizzlies for the right to meet the Lakers. And so finally that nonsense is over, and they're going to actually have the real playoffs. And looks like our Blackhawks are playing right now, and they're possibly going to be swept by the Vegas Knights, Golden Knights. So there's other sports going on too, and I'm enjoying the NHL and the NBA as well.
No, it's there's a lot of sports going on. We do want to say happy anniversary to the Negro League, 100th anniversary to the Negro League. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
No thoughts?
100, yeah. Happy anniversary.
What are your thoughts?
I want to sing.
What are your thoughts, Marvelous?
I was going to sing. I was going to sing a song now.
Go ahead, sing a song, Marvelous.
Okay, happy birthday. No, I mean, obviously there was a lot of history there, and there was before the Jackie Robinson days and all. There were a lot of the players that were very good players that never had a chance to play in the National American League, and that's a shame. But they actually there was a place for them to play, thank goodness. And finally, Jackie Robinson broke the barrier, and the rest is history.
No, the rest is history. And the interesting thing about it is the Negro League, and you all know, is documented. They play both at Wrigley and at the old Comiskey Park. And even when the Cubs were struggling for attendance, and the White Sox were kind of like teeter-tottering on attendance, I think the Sox were actually doing better regarding attendance compared to what the Cubs were. But when the Negro Leaguers came into town, especially the Comiskey, they were able to play their games over there, and they were drawing 50 to 60,000 fans over at the old Comiskey ballpark.
Wow.
And predominantly African-American spectators, African-American fans, which it's unbelievable when you think about the times, Marvelous.
Absolutely. I mean, there were some such great players that, Cool Papa Bell and the others, Leon Day. There's a lot of,
Satchel Paige.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, it's
Josh Gibson, Monty Irvin.
Yes. And of course, we understand, Ernie Banks was one of the first African Americans to play over on the north side for the Cubs. Minnie Minoso over on the south side for the White Sox. Larry Doby, after Jackie Robinson, made his debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers. But other players, Lou Johnson in 1955, Sam Jones in 46 to 48, Luis Marquez 45 to 48, Willie Smith 58 to 59, George Altman, Gene Baker, Ernie Banks, Mike Gonzalez, Monte Irvin, just some of the Negro League players who had an opportunity to play in the major leagues for the Cubs and/or White Sox. And as far as the founder is concerned, it was Rube Foster. He's the father of black baseball, founded and managed the Chicago American Giants. We still wear the hat now. Paul Shivari, who's filling in for Devin Tingle, has a hat. I had a hat, and Somebody snagged it. This was years ago, but the Chicago American Giants. It was a great hat. He organized the Negro National League in the 1920 and served as president and treasurer. The league began with 8 teams, Marvelous, including Rube's Giants, elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1981. So this Rube Foster is just as important, if not more important. And some people may want to throw a brick at me or whatever, but. Think about this. Papa Bear Hallis started the National Football League, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. This guy started the Negro League, and it's arguably the talent in the Negro League was better than the talent in the major leagues.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as time would have it, blacks we weren't allowed to play with the white ball players. What's so funny over
I'm
there?
just saying. I'm reading about the attendance. They drew 200,000 spectators during the 21 season. The Chicago American Giants. They drew big fans. I mean, that's a lot of people in those days.
No, Marvelous.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people in any day, but especially during that time when you talk about 65,000 fans, baseball fans crammed into a stadium to watch some of the elite ball players in the world. Get together and play, that says a lot. That says a lot. And it's unfortunate that it took Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey, to break the color barrier, so to speak.
Yeah, it was so difficult, too. If you read about that year, I mean, he was still unable to dine with the other players and all that. So it was very difficult even for him to make that breakthrough.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because we were hoping to get Fergie Jenkins on to talk a little bit about him, but we just didn't have enough time to reach out and get him on. But he certainly has some stories that he could share. I know Willie Mays has shared stories over the years. Hank Aaron definitely has shared some stories over the years. And it's a disappointing and unfortunate situation, the times that we lived in and still currently that we're experiencing today is the fact that we weren't, and I don't want to get into a political rant or anything, and it might lead to that, but I get kind of sick and tired of hearing people of non-color or white people say they're tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter. They're tired of hearing about it. Well, when you talk about these African-American ball players who were clearly equal, if not better, than many of their white peers playing at the level, that they had to stay in separate. If you've seen the Jackie Robinson story, you've seen what he went through, a glimpse of what he experienced, but couldn't stay at the same hotel, couldn't eat at the same restaurant, didn't get the same type of living quarters or any of that. And
insults from the fans.
Insults from the N-word.
Yeah.
The N-word. And what they endured to bring this sport and sports to the level of excitement, enjoyment, and entertainment that we experience today, it's mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. It's mind-boggling, and unfortunately, that was the mentality, and somewhat still the mentality today, that there's one race that's more superior in their minds than any other race, and they don't want to have equality or justice. And so we bring up the conversation regarding Sam Acho and the young lady saying reparations. That's why this younger generation, they feel the way that they feel, and they think the way that they think, and believe the way they believe, is because, come on, man, you got clearly one of the best athletes in Jackie Robinson, and he wasn't the best in the Negro League, but they felt he was the best mentally to handle all the abusive behavior that he was going to face. Mm-hmm. And he had to go through all of that just to say that I can play? Just to say that I can play?
Well, there were a lot of innovations. I mean, the Negro League had the first night game in 1930, the Kansas City Monarchs, and what they had to go through to get that done is an interesting story too. They had to bring in light towers mounted on trucks.
Believe me, I mean it's mind boggling. It's mind blowing. But for the young lady to say reparations, this is one reason why this generation of black and brown people are saying, you know what? Enough is enough. We're sick of it. Our grandfathers, our great grandfathers, our uncles, they all went through this BS, and we're not going through it anymore. So when I hear people, and I hear it a lot. Oh, I'm tired of this Black Lives Matter stuff. Well, you know what? Here you go. You're tired of it? Here you go. Too bad. Too bad. And why do I say too bad? Because when you oppressed, and other races can say, hey, we've been oppressed. This has happened to us. And this is what happened to us. And this is what we went through. But when your race of people have been oppressed for 400 years, and it's never been a level playing field, I understand why the young folks are saying enough is enough. And if you can't take Black Lives Matter, man, it's too bad. And let me set one record straight, too, since I'm on my soapbox. When I hear white people going, all lives matter. Wait a minute. If all lives matter, we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter. If all lives matter, and you truly believe that, and stood by that, and lived by that, then there's no reason to talk about Black Lives Matter. But the reason Black Lives Matter is the fact that Black lives didn't matter. Black lives didn't matter. And for you people out there who oppose the kneeling, because it's disrespectful, i.e. Mike Dicker, it's disrespectful to the American flag. If you don't like this country, get out of here.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas. Doc, how are you?
Having a great day, Jerry. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Dr. Chadwick Padromas, Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center's weekly podcast, and we always look forward to joining you and having you on board because of the knowledge that you bring to the table, doctor, the insight that you bring, your perspective, and just to help the average person watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, bring a little bit more education to their world of sports as far as sports injuries and sports medicine are concerned. We don't want anyone to get injured or get hurt while they're out there maybe shooting the ball in the driveway with their youngsters, or out there on the golf course, or maybe some skateboarders. And with the beautiful summer months here in the Chicagoland area, if you happen to be out skateboarding or riding a bike and you suffer some type of injury, we certainly don't want that to happen. But if it does, Dr. Chad Padromas is here to support, help you, and guide you and advise you throughout your journey. So, we go to the NBA, Doc, and we talk about the bubble and how successful during this pandemic and the coronavirus era that we're currently living in. And we see that the NBA in that bubble down in Orlando are doing a pretty decent job, a pretty good job as far as the testing are concerned with the players and, the low numbers. We see it's not working so well in Major League Baseball. So what happened with the Marlins down in Florida, and of course what's currently going on with the St. Louis Cardinals having to cancel games with the Cubs and the White Sox. I think they're expected to get underway back in the business sometime this weekend. We see what's happened with the National Hockey League up at Canada. They're doing a great job controlling everything, and still remains to be seen what happens with the National Football League. But we know on the collegiate level and the high school level, fall sports has been affected. But as far as the NBA bubble is concerned and the coronavirus and everything that's happened, there's other news and speculations coming out of the bubble. And we go to Philadelphia with the 76ers, and one of their up-and-coming stars, the superstars, Ben Simmons, unfortunately suffered an injury that, put him on the shelf. Joel Embiid, their other star player, had ankle injury, but the surgery, so to speak, and you can correct me on this, I guess we got a call from or a response from one of our viewers to ask the procedure that Ben Simmons underwent, some loose bodies being removed from his left knee. Now, the average person watching and listening to this podcast go, what's a loose body? How do you remove a loose body from an athlete's knee? Is this a new term? And can you shed some light on this loose body treatment that Ben Simmons with the Philadelphia 76ers underwent?
Sure. Actually, it's a really old term that goes back before the era of arthroscopic surgery. Usually, we see it in the context of older people with arthritis. But in his case, and by the way, in all cases like this, I have no inside information, and if I did, I couldn't share it anyway. I just read the papers like everybody else. But what's pretty clear from what's out there is that he had something called a subluxation of his kneecap. So the kneecap or patella sits in the front of the knee, but it's encased in structures called retinaculum. They're kind of like ligaments that hold it in a little groove. And the kneecap can tend to go out of the joint toward the outside. And if it goes out completely, it's called a dislocation. If it goes out partially and goes back in, it's called a subluxation. By all the accounts that I read, he had a subluxation. It's in susceptible people. You can get it from twisting your knee. It is more often seen in people who are looser jointed than others if it's atraumatic, if you don't get hit with something, which I think was the case with him, although I'm not sure. So what happened was apparently is that the kneecap went out and went back in, but in the process of going out and going in, and you kind of got your, the kneecap and it kind of goes out like this and goes back in. In the process of doing that, you can knock off a piece of cartilage. So I don't want this to be an anatomy class, but the cartilage terminology is a little confusing because there's two kinds of cartilage in the knee. There's what's called articular cartilage that coats the bone, kind of like Teflon on a frying pan or like a non-stick coating, which is what it is. It lets the knee glide. And then there's meniscal cartilage. When they talk about having a torn cartilage, often they're talking about that. So this is the articular cartilage that coats the bone. So what almost certainly happened is a piece of that got knocked off and is floating around in the knee. Now, the key thing to know about this is, actually, that happens reasonably often with this problem, and most of the time we don't take it out. Usually it just kind of scars down. So I don't know if they took it out in his case, because if it's a big piece, it'll float around and can cause problems. But the other thing is, the loose body itself is usually not the main problem. The main problem, if there is a main problem, is the crater that it came from. Because when a piece of cartilage is knocked off, you've got exposed bone underneath. And when you have bone gliding against other cartilage, this can cause all kinds of problems. So I don't know. Maybe this is just a small loose body that they took out just because he's Ben Simmons. It was a good sized piece. Now, when you go in to take it out, sometimes you will do something called a microfracture to the remaining cavity. There are other things you can do too, and I haven't read anybody describing this, but there are other techniques you can do. You can even take a biopsy of your cartilage and send it off and grow it and put it back in to grow it. So it was just kind of interesting because it was first reported as a loose body, but then he was reported as being out for the season. To just go in with a scope after a subluxation and take out a loose body, usually the recovery is very quick. However, if the crater where it came from is of significant size, then the recovery won't be. So, again, I don't know for sure, but it'll be interesting to see. He's kind of got jeopardy in a couple of places going forward. One, if that crater is big, it can cause problems. And that's the thing, by the way, that derails NBA careers in general, is the articular cartilage just gets beat up, and pretty soon you don't have much coating anymore. But the other thing is, the fact that it's subluxated once, unless you surgically go in and tighten things up, which I don't think they did, you're kind of prone to having it happen again. The other thing is, that the kneecap is part of the quadriceps mechanism. It's, related to that muscle. And that's where you get explosiveness from in jumping. Not really running, but jumping. Running come more from your hamstrings. So you don't know. A guy like Ben Simmons, who's just an unbelievable athlete, I think everybody knows, guy who's got the size of a center and the terrific speed and all that. You just have to wonder if that extensor mechanism, it's called, the quadriceps tendon, the kneecap, the quadriceps muscle, if that is rendered inflamed, then that's the kind of thing that can kind of cut into your athleticism. And just by comparison a little bit maybe. So Derrick Rose, very explosive athlete, super athlete, right? And tore his ACL. So the ACL is a ligament that destabilizes the knee. And if you fix it, and he had a very good surgeon, did a great job, and it's been fine, that doesn't necessarily lead to a loss of explosiveness. It can, but there isn't anything inherent to the ACL that does. But if you've got cartilage problems on the back of your kneecap or the socket for it, that's the kind of thing that can directly lead to a loss of explosiveness. I'm not saying it will happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But, sometimes that kind of thing could just be the beginning of, attrition of the knee.
Hey, Doc, that's great breakdown, a great analogy. As far as the diagnosis is concerned, regarding Ben Simmons, did he experience, in your opinion, your knowledge of this, did he experience discomfort, or does this cause, excruciating pain that it needs to be addressed? Because as athletes, younger, older, in between, when you have an injury or an ailment, in most cases you feel as if, okay, I can work myself through this pain. For instance, when you get a Charlie horse, that muscle tightens up, and you figure, hey, I can tough it out, and I can work it out, and I'm fine. I think I shared a story a few podcasts back where my son tore his ACL, and for a good month and a half, 2 months, he thought it was just a knee injury, and of course, once he went in after the X-ray with the MRI, it revealed that there was a torn ACL. But for Ben Simmons' situation, is it a discomfort where an athlete can feel like, or he felt like, hey, I can just stretch this out, run it out? Or is it excruciating pain that you say, hey, we've got to address this immediately because it's a lot more serious than what we believe?
Yeah, so in some of it's a great question, and in fact, there's a spectrum, kind of a continuum. The subluxations usually are not real painful. The dislocations are, because there's this thing that's called the retinaculum, kind of like a ligament, and if you dislocate it, usually it ruptures. If you subluxate it, usually you don't, so you usually don't get a lot of bleeding or acute pain, but it's variable, and you can. So, I'm in someone like him, they're going to get an MRI in every case. And so, pain or not, they probably wanted to give it time to heal on its own, and they probably, I guess, saw the loose body, said they wanted to take it out, or it might have been, it might have been big enough that they wanted to do something to address what they have disclosed. And I mean, why should they? It's nobody's business but his. But usually it's not terrible pain. The other thing that can be bad is if it subluxates a little and you go back too soon. It's kind of like with shoulders. The shoulders do the same thing, except with the shoulder you're not running, so it's a little better tolerated. So it probably could have been, but in most cases with a subluxation, it's not horrible pain. But maybe it was a good size loose body, or maybe he felt, you can feel this thing. They used to call it a joint mouse because it felt like, in the days before MRIs, like a little mouse running around inside your knee. So you can get mechanical problems. You're moving around and this thing's sticking and catching, and you have to get it out for that reason. Although for that to happen, that's usually a very large loose body, which usually you don't get so much from his injury. So, I mean, my guess is that they got the MRI, they saw it, they knew what happened, they figured they wanted to give him some time off, wanted to get the loose body out sooner than later. But I did think it was maybe a little unexpected that they shut him down completely after doing that. Makes you wonder if, maybe that crater was good size. But I don't want to speculate because there's no way to know.
No, but that's a great question because everyone's wondering, with this surgery, one, why didn't they know sooner? And two, is this going to affect what happens next year? Obviously, with the pandemic, if we get beyond that, they find a vaccine or whatever the case may be, and things return back to some sort of normalcy, will Ben Simmons be able to, return and play next season based on what he experienced with this loose body, currently? That's one of the big questions.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. So he's a really interesting player and fabulous athlete, all-star, couple years running, point guard at 6'10". But as is pretty well known, he scores, but he's just been reluctant to take outside shots. He basically, I don't know, the whole last year, I don't think he took but a half a dozen three-pointers, if that. And he just doesn't like shooting from anything except, 10 feet or whatever on in. I will say this, and last year was supposed to be the year that he was actually going to shoot more, and he didn't. And I guess he figures, the team did well, and his game's good enough with that. But I do think that it wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, who am I to give advice? But this might be the time to work on your shot a little bit because, relying on being, a freakish athlete, if you lose a little bit of that, maybe nice to have a shot to fall back on.
Well, from your perspective, from my perspective, it is simply a logical perspective. Expand your game. And we've seen the superstars do it, whether it's Michael Jordan, whether it's Magic Johnson, whether it's, currently with LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, what they were able to do with their game to adjust to the game. Unfortunately, you talk about, in my opinion, Ben Simmons, and another player comes to mind, Giannis Antetokounmpo with the Milwaukee Bucks. The stigma on him is the fact that you're right. He won't shoot that outside shot as well. And even when the bubble, that kind of resurfaced that he doesn't have an outside shot and he can't shoot the three-pointer. And I know he and Kyle Korver were working on shooting those three-pointers to open up his game. But Ben Simmons had the same type of style when he was at LSU, I believe, in the collegiate ranks. His pot of gold was at the rim, to score. And athletes, as we know, are creatures of habit. And whatever got them there, they continue to incorporate that style of play. And I think that's probably one of the reasons those two players in particular, they make their bread and butter at the rim, inside the paint area. And when you ask them to do something differently to help themselves out, as far as expanding their game from beyond the arc, they're not comfortable in doing that, and so they resort back to the game style that they're comfortable with and familiar with, and got them to that point, despite what anyone else may say. So, it is. I say all that to say, those are some great athletes, but you can't really expect them to change their game to the point where it's going to, make them better and elevate their teams to the next level, because in their mind, their mentality, that's how they play, that's what they're comfortable with, and that's what they're going to continue to do to reach their goals and to overcome their deficiency, so to speak.
Yeah, no, you're obviously right. I think Giannis a little more inclined to take outside shots, and he's taken some three-pointers, and
he'll take working on it.
Yeah,
I remember he's been working on it.
There's a press conference.
Yeah, he's still not comfortable to the degree that you want him to be. And when it's crunch time, if you watch his game and it's crunch time, he's not going to pull up for a three. He's going to take it to the rim and do what he's comfortable with. But he has tried to expand his game to make it a entirely complete game. And when you're in the talks of MVP, it's hard to argue against that. But with Ben Simmons, he's still somewhat of a young player, and I believe he's still set in his ways, and it's going to take a little bit more time, maybe a couple more seasons for him to get comfortable with expanding his game, shooting beyond the arc. But right now, I think he's comfortable with, playing close to the rim.
Yeah, that's true. And again, what do I know? But I know that my daughter was in college in Philadelphia, so she was kind of following them some. So we used to talk about it a little bit. And he actually generated some heat from his coach because, his coach is Australian and Ben Simmons is Australian. And because he's a point guard that wouldn't shoot. Giannis is either a 4 or a 5 who wouldn't. So it's probably not the urgency. And so it just kind of puts a premium on having other shooters since he really wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe this will be the thing. And I think I remember in the preseason they had videos of him, and he seemed like he could shoot it pretty well. He had a nice stroke. He just kind of wouldn't, and he's taking heat for it. I know Stephen A. Smith, for one, was saying they're going no place. This is last year before the playoffs. He said until he takes an outside shot, they're going no place. Maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong.
Yeah.
So, but
he's right. I think that coming into this after the long layoff, 142 days or something that there was a layoff from when this pandemic hit to getting back to the bubble. There were some experts out there that felt that Philadelphia was one of the teams to beat in the East, and that they were projected to challenge. Because think about it. Was it Toronto with the Kawhi 3 bounces that eliminated them? Yeah. So there were a lot of people around the country following the NBA that believe that Philadelphia, this could be the opportunity, the time for them to to stake their claim and make a run for it because of the personnel. And now you look at it today and you go, wow, what the heck happened? 2 of their key components are down and out, and this team is going nowhere. So strange thing as far as the league is concerned, not only on the court, but as far as injuries are concerned, and the direction franchises and organizations can go almost in the blink of an eye. As far as the blink of an eye is concerned, I want to switch gears a little bit, Doc, with the Dr. Chad Padromas on a weekly podcast, Sports Medicine Update. The National Football League, the players have reported the rookies were in camp a couple of weeks ago, and now the rest of the personnel, as far as the players are concerned, have reported up to their respective facilities for workout, albeit they're still under protocol as far as COVID testing and social distancing as best as they possibly can. But we look at football and we see the physical specimen of these athletes, and it's amazing, over the years how we've seen the evolution of these athletes. They're bigger, faster, stronger, and we talk about bigger, and we focus a little bit on the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen as well. But you and I go back a little bit long in the tooth, and we talk about a 300-pound football player, and that, of course, William Refrigerator Perry with the beloved Chicago Bears and the '85 Super Bowl team. We know that the Dallas Cowboys in their dynasty run with Troy Aikman under center, and of course Emmitt Smith running the rock for them, they were behind one of the biggest offensive lines the National Football League had ever seen. We know that players now are well over 300 pounds because of the change in the game. But you and I have talked over extensive period of time as far as the health and life expectancy of these players once they leave the professional ranks of the National Football League. And we've seen some players who have really even gotten even bigger once they left the game because their diets and their workout habits have changed. But we've seen other players who have, if not maintained that playing weight, they've actually gotten smaller. And you've looked really deeply into this, and I want you to share with our viewers and our listeners, your thought behind the players and their physical being from playing, leaving the sport. Do you mind elaborating?
I've been aware of it, and I've looked into it more lately. The COVID thing's kind of brought it to bear because, as we talked about last week, a majority of the people who have opted out are linemen. And you wonder why that would be. So you look at, what risk factors they have. So the combination of obesity and testosterone is a definite risk factor. So heavy men do worse with COVID. That's abundantly clear. But picking out the specific risk factors, so obesity by itself appears to be in a male. But the other thing is that obesity causes all kinds of other problems. Autoimmune problems, asthma, for example, is made worse by being heavy. Now, it's not to say if you're heavy with asthma and you lose weight, it's going to go away, but there's no question that overall it's made worse. Obviously, diabetes, definitely made worse. And there are young men who are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And so, I wonder myself, there's not a lot written, and that's probably a good thing, as to why so many linemen have opted out. And I don't know. I don't know if they see the obesity statistics, or if I know in the Bears, Eddie Goldman, right? It was just in the paper that he suffers from asthma, and he's a fabulous player. Oh my goodness, big and strong. And that's probably why he's not playing, because I read he is out with a designation of high risk. I think they get a little more money or something. But I just think I would love to see football turn back the page to where players were 30, 40 years. And the guys were big, but like we were talking about earlier, Roosevelt Brown, when I was a kid, Detroit Lions, one of the 100 best players of the, I think, 20th century, whatever, fearsome foursome, right? Defensive tackle. And he was 6'3" and 255, right? So if he'd be a linebacker today. The guys that are 6'3" are 320, 330. And so a few statistics that are kind of interesting. So if you look at BMI, and I've got a little cheat sheet here prepared. So BMI, body mass index, and it's raw, and this is just size. There's a whole separate variable with body fat and just percentage of body fat. But so 25 is considered overweight. Now all NFL players by that range are overweight because they're so muscular. 30 is considered obese. 35 morbidly obese. Say 40 is morbidly obese. But the numbers I came up on, which is kind of interesting, is that first of all, they used to say that NFL players died young. As I looked into it, I found out that it doesn't look like they do so much anymore, except that if you're heavy. So a BMI of 30 obese is said to take 3 years off of your lifespan. A BMI of 35 is said to take 8 years off of your lifespan. And a BMI of 40 is said to take 20 years off of your life. So then you say, well, what do those numbers translate to in terms of height and weight? Well, I'll tell you, 6'4" and 328 is a BMI of 40. So statistically, if you're that size, you cut 20 years off your life on average, obviously. So 6'4" and 328, I mean, that's average size, maybe even below average. I don't know, nose tackles, defensive tackles. And I won't mention names. I was looking up some, players around the league. But there are people on the Bears that are bigger than that, and there are people all over the league, offensive line as well. So these players are big because they have to be big, but it's very unhealthy. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, and I feel pretty strongly about this, and I'm going to try to see if I can. And see, the thing that really bothers me about it is the college players. I read an article from 2013 that said the University of Florida at that time had 12 or 14 players over 300 pounds. This is a college, and I'm sure it's more today. And this high school there had all these players over 250. So the problem is when the pros are that big, it trickles down. Now, here's the thing. When you get to be that big, there aren't too many people that are 6'4" and 320 that are ripped, And so what I'm saying is I would love to see it be the case that if you work out and you're big and really strong and your body fat is low, that's great. But when the guys put on an extra 30, 40 pounds of weight that's mostly fat, it maybe makes them a better blocker, or they get the quarterback a little bigger, but it's terrible for their health. And what's even worse is, and this is nobody's fault, but they look at the pros. So then if you're playing in college and you want to be in the pros, you got to be that big. So now you're a college guy trying to be 320. And then if you're in high school and you want to go to a college, you're trying to be 250, 280. So there's all these people that are doing really unhealthy things to their bodies. And I think the whole thing could be rectified, make it a level playing field for everybody. And if you say, well, if your BMI is over 30, you can't play unless you get a body fat test, which is easy enough to do. There's these little machines where you just stand there and they test it. Unless your body fat is like under 20%. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. 20%, the running backs, the wide receivers have body fat that's like 9%, right? So 20% is not super skinny. But that could be done. I think it benefits everybody. I think the players would embrace it, because then the guy that's 340, he doesn't want to be 300 if the lineman he's going against is 340. But if everybody's, getting down in size, it doesn't disadvantage him. I think then it trickles down to the college, it trickles down to the high school, and you'll literally save lives. I mean, people will live longer if that culture could be changed. The owner should like it, because their players are going to stay healthier. The players are all about health, right? They're working on helmets that, you can't spear, you can't tackle, you can't crack back block. That's all great stuff. It should all be about health. So I think that at all levels, if you say, well, BMI has to be limited to 30, which is still pretty heavy, and if you want to be bigger than that, fine, but you've got to be ripped. It's got to be muscle, not fat. And for the COVID thing, in the UK, they are working on obesity as a risk factor, because they know it's a risk factor.
Right.
That tends to not happen in this country for, I don't know what, social reasons. People get offended, I guess. But the NFL, I think, could set a great example. And I mean, there's precedent for doing this kind of stuff. I think they could set a great example. I think everybody would like it. I've been doing a little research on this. I'm intending to try to get it out there in the public dialogue. NCAA, IHSA in the state, high schools, the pros. I think you help COVID, you set a good example, you cut down on diabetes, on heart disease, on autoimmune disease. It's good for the culture. I think it's good for everybody. And I don't see any reason why it can't happen.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think you're right on point, and it's a great indicator to learn if these owners and these organizations are really concerned about these athletes, their health, their livelihood, and more importantly, life after the sport, life after football. Doc, there's more. I'm sure we're just touching the tip of the iceberg as far as this conversation, this topic is concerned. Definitely want to dive back into it a little bit more moving forward regarding the podcast. It goes real fast, but there's so much wealth of information and knowledge that's coming from this podcast, and we look forward to it every week. The Sports Medicine Update. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to find out more about what Dr. Chad Padromas does, and if you can help them, how do they get in contact with you, Doc?
Just call our main number. It's 847-699-6810, or you can email at ortho@ismoc.net. This question actually came from an email from a viewer listener. So we're happy to talk about sports and bring things here that are of interest, and always happy to see as well to help where I can.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting more into this topic, this discussion, because it's definitely, we want to make sure everyone's out there having a grand time, having a fantastic time, enjoying themselves, especially with the beautiful weather that we're experiencing. So if you're out there playing golf, if you're out there shooting hoops, if you're bicycling, swimming, whatever the case may be, we want you to be safe and sound. But if for some reason you sustain some type of sports injury, Dr. Chad Padromas, Sports Medicine Update, the podcast, is where you want to be to find your help, find your aid, find your support. And we love bringing it to you every week. No question about it. Doc, thank you so very much. We look forward to talking with you. Have a great weekend, and another edition Sports Medicine Update podcast. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, Jerry.